Okay, good afternoon, one and all, and good to see you here at the McCormick Lounge here in Coffee Hall. Welcome to Loyola University Chicago. What a day, beautiful fall weather outside, and certainly a powerful esprit de corps permeates the university as we are all abuzz with the love of learning and a gratitude at the thought of impending final examinations and projects, I'm sure. Gratitude for the gift of it all, and I know I speak for us all when I say that. On behalf of the leadership at LUC, the Hank family, I want to welcome you to our 2017 Teilhard lecture. The Teilhard de Chardin S.J. Fellowship in Catholic Studies, named for the great Jesuit geologist, paleontologist, and mystic. And yes, when did we ever hear those three words together? It's Teilhard de Chardin from France, 1889 to 1962 or 65, I think, somewhere in there. We have this visiting fellowship each fall semester. We invite scholars from across the disciplines and from around the world whose work intersects with the rich intellectual, artistic, and historical tradition of Roman Catholic thought and practice. We invite these fellows to come and teach a course here at Loyola, give workshops, and then this formal lecture. So funded in part by the generous gift from Loyola University's Jesuit community and the Office of the President, the chair is open to both lay men and women in rotation with Jesuit scholars and scholars from other orders as well. So our 2017 Teilhard Fellow is Mr. Uwem Akpan, the award-winning author of memoir and short fiction. Mr. Akpan was born in Uwem State, Nigeria. He attended the Catholic University of East Africa in Kenya and both Creighton and Gonzaga universities in the U.S. here. In 2006, he completed his MFA at the University of Michigan. After much discernment, Mr. Akpan left the Catholic priesthood and the Jesuit order in 2015 in order to dedicate more time to his writing. In recent years, he served as a fellow at the Black Mountain Institute at UNLV, the Institute for Humanities at the University of Michigan, and the Coleman Center at the New York Public Library in New York City. Currently, Mr. Akpan divides his time between Nigeria and Atlanta, Georgia, and now Chicago. Mr. Akpan's stories and short autobiographies have appeared in The New Yorker and made the special literary edition twice. His first book, which is over here for your perusal, Say You're One of Them, came out in 2008 and was included in the New York Times Editor's Choice list, and really, that book was on so many best of lists that it's getting hard to count. Other accolades for the collection include the Commonwealth Prize, the Penn Open Book Award, and the Hurston Wright Legacy Award. And I will add here that Say You're One of Them was also selected as an Oprah Winfrey Book Club selection, which has a certain resonance for people in this country. I can't tell you what a delight it's been to have Uwem among us this fall. We have had many life-giving conversations and a whole bunch of laughter. And he's really raised up our center, and it's been a lot of fun. He's simply a joy to be around, but don't take my word for it only, just ask his students. I've heard over and over from students how much they're enjoying this course, how much his joy of life and his generosity of spirit inspire and facilitate the course content. Thank you, Uwem, for teaching our students well. Much appreciated. And thank you in advance for what promises to be an edifying lecture and conversation as you sketch personal portraits of grace. So let us not tarry here on the shores of Lake Michigan any longer. Please welcome our 2017 Teilhard de Chardin Fellow in Catholic Studies, Uwem Akpan.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, please say something. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm so happy to have all of you here. And I thank Dr. Murphy for his generous welcome and words. I I want to thank a whole series of people because before I say what I want to say. So Joanne and Bill Hanks are the people who have set up this center for us. I'm grateful to you. And of course, again, Dr. Murphy, the welcome I've had in the department, and Gabby. I've been to some places, it was like laughter was not allowed. So I'm glad to be here. Megan, you're the one trying to take my picture, so thank you very much. Amy Christensen, Dr. Joyce Wesler, Brenda Javier, Gabby, and then the president of the university. I feel her presence a lot where I am because, they're trying to create an office in our little corner of the campus so she could come in once a week. So she's not here yet, but I'm seeing a lot of things moving around. So, Mrs. President, I thank you. The Provost, John Perlicero, Associate Provost, Patrick Boyle, the Dean of Arts and Science, Father Tom Reagan, and then to all of you, dear students and visitors and teachers and staff of Loyola University. A story is not complete, as it is said back in my tribe, until you have an audience to tell this story to. Otherwise, it's just something in your head. So, so with you here, I think I'll be able to talk about this portrait of Grace. Now, let me tell you a secret. The full title is actually The Portrait of Grace and Sin. But I figured if I added sin, none of you would show up here. Grace is always accompanied by a sin. And someone has said, where there is a lot of sins, there's a lot of grace. Anyway, it's going to be basically about things I've seen and known in Catholicism. Back in my tribe, the Anang people of the South or the southeastern part of Nigeria, these terminologies change from time to time. So please, Dr. Murphy, what I would like you to do is to at least show the map of Nigeria so I could point to where my people are located.
Okay, we are here.
Yeah, that's Africa. And we are getting to Nigeria. Fly me into Nigeria.
Yeah, here we go. Looks good. Yeah. Nice day for aviation.
Yeah.
All right, how close you want to go?
No, go up. Good. That's good. Okay. I am somewhere around here. That's all I can say. You need to know I'm from Africa, and within that is Nigeria, and within Nigeria I am in the Niger Delta. No, you are taking me to Father Okoro's place, to Igbo land. So yes, somewhere around here. This is where I am. Okay. That should do it.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. It's Teilhard. Yeah, it's Pierre Teilhard de Chardin who said, "We are one. After all, you and I. Together we suffer, together exist, and forever we recreate each other." The Christianity we see now in West Africa came after the abolition of slave trade. So what this means is, during the age of Henry the Explorer, Christianity came to West Africa. And so you're talking about the 16th century. The Jesuits had just been, established, founded, when all of this happened. So the Europeans started exploring other parts of the world. They got around this way and got to Benin City before they got to the Americas. So I always say Catholicism got to us first, so Americans calm down. But that was about 500 years ago. And at that time, these people have always been called Benin City. It was the greatest, biggest, most organized medieval city in the world. If you think I'm kidding you, Google Benin City. It was the most organized, developed, biggest city in the world. So when the explorers came and found Benin City, the Portuguese who came, they left diaries that Lisbon, their own capital city, was like a rat hole compared to Benin City. That London was like a brothel compared to Benin City. America did not exist at that point yet. So this Benin City went as far as the Republic of Benin. So it was a pretty big enclave, but they were not called countries, they were like kingdoms. Okay, so that was, that city had been flourishing like that without anybody knowing since the late medieval time. The explorers came, they saw what they saw, and then slavery came in. Shortly before the slavery came in, the first mass to be celebrated in Nigeria was in Benin City in 15-something. And the Oba, the king of Benin, was there with his wives. It was a big event. And they created, there's a small cathedral they built here. They were allowed to build 3 churches. The Oba gave the Beninese a bit of permission to join Catholicism, but not many of them. You don't want to upstage the religion of your people. Now, some of these missionaries were also soldiers. So they would help the Oba of Benin to go to war with other kingdoms and defeat other kingdoms. And now, when you are defeated, when you are conquered, you became slaves. And some of those slaves now started being shipped out to Portugal. By the time the transatlantic slave trade was discovered and people knew that, if you brought Africans to the Americas, they can help in the sugar plantation, it became very, very, very bad. And from that point on, all kinds of balance was lost, and the slave trade became something else altogether. And the small Christianity that was beginning here disappeared by the 17th century. Because you can basically be learning catechism from people who are taking, enslaving you and taking you away from the world. Let me just pause. I forgot to mention someone, Chris Murphy, Dr. Chris Murphy. Welcome to my talk. He's also on my floor. And you and I have had great conversations during this time. So I forgot at the beginning, but I saw you smiling there, it helped. So Catholicism disappeared at that point. A syncretic version of it remained. And so in the whole of Nigeria, the Beninese are the people I've seen who wear the rosary the most. They don't wear it because it's a Christian thing, a Catholic thing. They wear it because they believe, they thought it was part of their culture. It's been there for 500 years. Okay, but that rosary they first saw was given by the King of Portugal, Uwem III, to the King of Benin City as a diplomatic, gift, and the Beninese also gave them gifts, that time. So with the disappearance of Christianity, these sacramentals remain in Benin City. So if you ask a typical Benin man today, why are you wearing the rosary? He says, what else do you want me to wear? He's not coming to the Catholic Church. He's just wearing the rosary because it's been part of his culture for a very long time. And up till today, the chiefs around the Oba, their dressing is like what the Capuchin priests in the 16th century were using. It has big capes. So that's how Catholicism first entered into this, kingdom. This was a very big kingdom. And they had underground drainage, and the Portuguese explorers said what shocked them the most was there was no crime. And these people did not have to lock their doors. So if you have a city that is going from here to this other country, and you have that kind of organization, then I must give it to the Beninese. Don't take my word for it. Google Benin City, you will see all I'm talking about. It's been written about. But what happened after 400 years of slavery? Benin City was destroyed, and Lisbon and London and America came into existence, and we have what we have right now. The last remnants of Benin City was destroyed in 1897 by the Brits, who wanted to force them to be in Nigeria. The Beninese revolted and said, we don't want to be in southern Nigeria. And 3 wars were waged. The Brits lost the first time, they lost the second time. The third time they got mercenaries from Canada, and they burnt down Benin City completely and exiled the king to the kingdom of Calabar, where he died. They took all the artifacts back to London. So that controversy is still on now. And what we have now as Benin City is the remnants of its past glory. All right. After slavery, mid-19th century, missionaries started coming over again to Africa. So what you see now as the missionary growth in Africa is actually from this post-slavery impetus. My grandfather was born in 1901. His name was Jumbo Akpan. He brought Catholicism to my village. He brought Christianity, along with a few friends, to my village. So what happened was, it was going to be his duty to be the keeper of the native family shrine, because he was the firstborn of this particular family. Excuse me. He didn't want to do this. For some reason, he revolted. But saying no meant you had to be killed, so that the second child would take your place. He could only take your place if you were dead. So when he revolted, he was smart enough to run to another place and live with the Irish missionaries. They gave him protection. And he imbibed another religion that gave him another type of, another universe. So he stayed there with this Irish priest till he was old enough, and he returned to the village with this new religion. And with a bunch of people, they founded the church in my village. My grandfather was a very decisive man. He could be very sweet and nice, but he could also be very angry. I lived with him for the first 10 years of my life. He was very kind to us, the grandchildren. You could get away with anything. Anything. But the children could never get away with the pain. They were 35, you could not say, couldn't do what he didn't want you to do. But with the grandchildren, we were very happy. Nobody could bully us in primary school. If my grandfather heard about it, he's coming to school with that machete. Who would touch my grandchild? It was that kind of fiery, figure. So we got a lot of protection from him in the village. And with that kind of person anchoring the push to bring Catholicism, Christianity in. A lot of people believed in him because once my grandfather said this is what should be done, he did everything to accomplish this. The Irish missionaries were very effective in planting Catholicism in our parts of the world. So, all of southern Nigeria, the Irish were able to do something with this, but northern Nigeria, which had Islam, did not get the kind of education the people of southern Nigeria got. And because of this, my country today is very lopsided. Islam came into northern Nigeria in the 10th, 9th century. And they had you know how it is, they had their own restrictions. Once the Catholic missionaries came in, the Christian missionaries took over the south. What they did was build a school, build a church, build a hospital. That was the ecclesiology. This is how they, emphasized and got Christianity into the people. And so my grandfather, it was like he wanted everyone in the whole vicinity, to be Catholic. He really believed in it. Back then we belonged to the Diocese of Calabar. Okay, the Igbos are up here, like you saw Nicha here and all of this. The people of Mike Lekuru, and the people of I've forgotten the other priests. These are the Yorubas. They're somewhere here. Okay, now we belong to this archdiocese, and it was very, very, very big. But people were trekking all the way, 2 days worth of walk to attend masses. So it was always like going on a pilgrimage. And people were excited because once you've made that trip and you've seen the Blessed Sacrament, it was like, I'm now ready to die. I can do anything. So it was a great, great, great thing. After a while, we became the Diocese of Ikot-Ekpene, somewhere here, and it was, small. Now, in this diocese, our parish, when I was born, our parish was Inen Parish. It had 64 or even 70 outstations run by one Irish priest. 70 outstations. Each village of maybe 5,000 people had a Catholic church. And the pride people take in your village church, I've never seen anything like that before. So how did this one priest run the system? The ecclesiology was such that every Sunday, the catechist ran a service, not mass. And the same readings that were being read out here in Chicago is what we read here. You know how Catholicism is. It comes out with readings for the year, and everyone worldwide is reading this. So the catechist will run this, except he couldn't perform the Eucharist. But guess what? Nobody ever worried back home. Even up till now, it's still happening. Because you don't have enough priests to go around. People go to church. They have fulfilled their Sunday obligation. In my place, the Eucharist was not something you hope to receive every Sunday or every day. People went to morning prayers. So by 5, you went to church for morning prayers, rosary, and you also met with your fellow people and greeted them. After that, you went to the stream to get water, and then you came back, you cooked. Those who went to farm went to the farms. Those who went to school, the children went to school. On Sunday, the catechist did the same thing. So this is how I grew up. So it's usually very strange for me when people say, the priest did not come on Sunday. I missed something. I don't miss anything. This is how I grew up. I didn't see a priest every Sunday. I just had service, and that was enough for my soul. That was enough for all the people. And after a while, the next village became a parish, our parish. It's just 1 mile from my place. People were not going there. You have to support your village church. You can't just run to receive the Eucharist over there. And why couldn't the priest come? There were 70, little churches. So he will come like 3 times a year. That's what the priest will do. And when the priest came, it was like a feast, Other times, even when we were 70 outstations, once a month, first Sunday of the month, you went to the central station. From my place to the central station when I was growing up was 10 miles. You walked or you got on the bicycle if you really believed in Catholicism. Everyone. So again, it was usually a very big event of all these people showing up, and roll call will be made. So you had to show up to defend your own territory, that you're still, alive. Looking back now, I found all of this very, interesting. Once a month, we all went to the central station and received the Eucharist. And then these other Sundays, you were okay. What they also did that was very crucial, in my part of Nigeria, you do not have a first Sunday of the month unless you have a first Friday of the month. So if the month begins on a Sunday, that cannot be the first Sunday of the month in the eyes of my local church. It will be the next one because you need that first Friday, and that was usually a day of fasting for everyone. Okay. This may not have applied universally, but this is how that ecclesiology was, a day of prayer for everyone. So once you've had first Friday, you now had first Sunday. And that's when everybody would gather as a parish. Okay. 2 Sundays after that, this sense of gathering will shift from the central parish to one of the parishes. So it will go around to one of the outstations. So it will go around. It might take a year for it to come to your own outstation. But this was a way of getting others to know these different places. And after these 2 Sundays, this 3rd Sunday was usually called, in my language, Orianare. It means marriage intervention Sunday. What this means is 2 couples will volunteer and tell the story of their marriage. This was meant to encourage, people to, so the husband and the wife will stand, after communion, they'll stand up and talk about the challenges they have. And it was always very fascinating because this could have been people you knew they were fighting every day in their home. But they were, talking about what the struggles were. So it was like the high point of such, gathering. And the Irish put this, in place. Okay. And yet, after Mass, it was always accompanied with a lot of food and drinking and socializing and competition and soccer games and something for the youths, to do. Now, we can quibble about culture and colonial and even racist attitudes among the missionaries who came to our country to spread the gospel. So how does one take something so rich and deep and complex as Catholicism from one culture to another? Okay. There's no getting around it. Whoever brings his religion to you will bring this religion the way they know it, which means in the confines and constructs of their culture. So there'll be a lot of things you'll be thinking is very Catholic, but no, it's not Catholic, it's just Americanism. A lot of things you think would be very Irish or very Catholic, but no, it's not this. It's Irish culture. So our people say, There's nothing a dog brings to you without tasting. The dog has already eaten a part of this. So, so what you are eating is what is left over by the dog. Unless American dogs have ways of carrying things with their limbs. You know, in our place, it's always with the mouth. Okay. Now, let me go back to the story of my grandfather. Because in the midst of all this excitement to spread Catholicism, of course, he married my grandmother, and they had 4 children. And then something entered into the head of my grandfather, and he went and got wife number 2. And you know how that sounds in the Catholic Church. It cannot be done, right? Hello? So over here, you guys are quibbling about if I leave my first marriage and, you know, the process of annulment so I can get a second wife or a second husband, or even so I can marry a fellow man or a fellow woman. These are the issues we are hearing out here. In our place, it is, why can't I have 2 wives? Why is this a problem? If the woman says yes and everyone says yes, why is this a problem? But well, it's against Catholic doctrine. So this is what my grandfather, of all people, went to do. And the Irish missionaries couldn't figure it out. What's wrong with you? So, but being the man he was, he didn't bother. He still kept coming to church, but he wouldn't receive the Eucharist. So back in the terminology of our people, you are a fallen Catholic if you don't receive communion. You Americans have made this politically sweet in the ear, lapsed Catholic. Lapsed Catholic. No, back home you're a fallen Catholic, like the fallen angel. And they really drive this into you. So what were the missionaries doing back then to discourage this kind of attitude? Because it was all over the place. And it was nothing like they had seen in Ireland. This was a new pastoral problem. That some people were like, they will marry, but they will still come to communion if the priest did not know and nobody reported this, you know, with their 2 wives. So now, in many places, the Irish priests started flogging these married men, not the women. So when they came to your outstation, these 3 times a year, towards the end of Mass, they'll call out your name as a person who has been living in sin. And God wanted them to cleanse you. They'll call you out towards the altar. They'll get church wardens who will now jack you up, crank you up. 4 men, one holding you here, one holding you there, with their backside up, and the Irish priest would have his whip. And you'll hear the lashes fall on this man. The children are there in the church watching. The wives are there in the church watching. Can you think of any more ways to humiliate someone? So you'll be flogged and warned and asked to go and divorce the second wife. So there were people who were going through this. It wasn't only in my tribe, it was all over, our area. They really flogged these people. It was not only my grandfather who fell into this category. Okay. There's nothing I've heard in my family history that said he was flogged. He always seemed to have sneaked out of the church before that time of the church. But my mother's father, who also was one of those who brought Catholicism to my village, he could not stand a white man screaming at him. He couldn't. He was the same age with my grandfather. For him, this was no, a fellow man cannot scream at you like that for any reason. Otherwise, we should just step out there and have a wrestling match. Whoever wins knows you are bragging right. To now put on these funny clothes and start screaming at a fellow man, no, he couldn't take it. So he and his friends, they went and founded another church called the African Church, which allowed polygamy. So all over Nigeria, you have churches. All over Africa, you have churches that allow polygamy. And the people there are just, they're happy. They say, okay, our church says we will go to heaven. Our church says Abraham had more than one, and someone had 700 wives, and why can't we not have our own? They have to say, we have found this in the Bible, so what's wrong with this? So they put this argument forward. And you have some churches like that, and people are comfortable with this. Now, my grandfather was still dying to receive the Eucharist. So they had to figure out a way to make this work. By this time, the second woman had given birth to like 7 children. So 7 plus 4. Okay. And, this second woman and her children were coming to church. My grandfather made sure they came to church. I'm Catholic. I may be fallen, but I'm Catholic. That's Catholic doctrine. You never fall out of Catholicism except you've been excommunicated. You are always, you can be lapsed. Once you are baptized, who can remove that from your soul? So they had to enter into an agreement that he should divorce the woman. And again, this is where the Irish missionaries suffered a lot in trying to come up with a solution. So tell me now, someone in the belief of his culture has married 2 wives, 3 wives. He's got children who have done nothing to anyone except to come into the world and learn how to live with daddy and mommy and these other mummies. And suddenly, one day, you wake up and say he should divorce this woman. Can you see how the children will react to this? Why should our mother be sent away? It's an absolute disaster for the children. Because they've done nothing to deserve this. Do you think there'll ever be peace in that family? No! So now, what did the church do? It said, the man must provide for this woman whom he has divorced, must build a house for him elsewhere to live and take care of him. Because they're thinking of alimony and all of that. But these 2 people want to remain married. But you've brought religion and you've divided these people. What about those who were married before they came into Catholicism? They arrived with their 3 wives and said, we found Jesus here. Why can we not accommodate them? You're going to say, okay, divorce, you have 4 wives. Have you ever gone through one divorce before and see how it is? It's evil. It's painful. If you have to divorce 3 women at a go, you go mental. It's just so that you receive communion. And yet people were trying to do this. So my grandfather was told, divorce this woman, provide for her. So they're sitting there, all these men are sitting there, and the women said, okay, I divorce her, then I build a house for her, then I provide for her, and some other man will actually be having the conjugal rights. How? It's a disaster. So now, my grandfather, where we live is where he used to live, so what has happened is my uncles have just built homes around the place. So he built a house for the woman, like see where you have that building, not this pagoda, the building itself. Or let's even say that building, the chapel. So the house was built there, you have to leave our compound, walk on the road, and get there and get into that place. That's where the woman lived, my step-grandmother. Over time, you know what happened? they said they started noticing a small track through the bush to that place. And the woman kept having children. And they were the children of my grandfather. And now, since he had divorced her in church, he was committing adultery, which is forgivable, and he could still receive communion. Okay. So there are ways we get into all these crazy situations, and just so that we keep laws. Because people were saying to him, look, you can actually enjoy both communion and this woman. Just build a house for her there. You know, after all, there are priests who have their concubines, and they're still celebrating Mass. Okay? But if they now go to marry, it holds them by the neck. So that small tract kept becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. By the time I was born, it was one big compound. And the Irish people showed up and, they said, look, her children had to be coming to see me, so that's how that tract became big. Who has these other children? What are you going to do? You'll come to confession. Adultery is not the kind of sin that should excommunicate you from the church. It's not. Fornication is not that kind of sin. So this is the situation my grandfather finally found himself. He was happy, very happy with himself. It was as if he had cheated God in this fight. So that's the family I grew up in. And but there was always a lot of tension because my cousins from the other woman always said my grandmother was chosen over their grandmother. And up till today, it's still a source of friction in my extended family. Every meeting we have, that finds a way in. Yours was chosen over ours. That's why we are not very successful. There was a curse placed on us. Okay. Now, my two aunties died even before I was born. And they died in labor. The first one was to give birth to twins. And the native midwife, back then in the 60s, in my village, you were not allowed to give birth to twins. Human beings were supposed to give birth to one, not like dogs who give birth to litters. The system, what they believed in, what you could only give birth, a human being gives birth to one child at a time. So if they knew you were going to give birth to twins, they made sure that this did not happen. This was the belief system. And if you succeeded, the twins were now excommunicated with the mother to another part of the village. That was the belief system. So now, this is something the missionaries helped us a lot in resolving. So when I talk about sin and grace, the missionaries said, no, these human beings are created by God. It's God who decides all these things. You cannot punish the woman. You cannot punish the children. We'll take care of these children. But my auntie died in that process. One auntie. The other one died. Still, she tried to give birth to one child, but she was not taken to the hospital. She went to the midwife, and she died. So there's something to be said about the fact that you have hospitals, but people don't go. So fast forward to maybe 2004, when the medical missionaries of Mary, this a group of nuns who are big time into medicine, they've been running a hospital, or they were running a hospital in in my diocese for a long time. And they did splendid work. People were always coming from all over the country because these sisters were very competent. But many people were still dying, even in that village that hospital was, because they were going to the midwife, the native midwife. Even my mom, after giving birth, my mom is a teacher. She went to college. After giving birth to my first brother in the hospital, my second brother in the hospital, now my turn came and she said, oh, let me go and try the native midwifery. You know, so you see how I was risked? And she went there and survived. And now my second brother, my last brother, she went back to the hospital. Okay. So you still see today, even in your country, there are people who will not go, they want to give birth at home. And there's some special arrangement. Though I can imagine these are professionals who understand something about medicine. But I want to say that these nuns who are very professional, they came from Ireland, and they've done tremendous work all across Africa. You can Google them, Medical Missionaries of Mary. It was only around 2004 they figured out how to solve that problem. And what did they do? They stopped being antagonistic towards the native midwives. They stopped condemning them. They stopped scolding them. They actually announced all over the villages around that hospital and told everyone, if you are a midwife, if you are a native midwife, please come. We want to appreciate you. We want to have a big meeting. Come. And all these people came. All these illiterate women, they came. Very happy that finally the Catholic Church was going to recognize that they're important. And when they came, these sisters, these medical doctors, sat with them side by side and said, look, we are doing the same thing. We are trying to help women give birth. So we are together in this fight, in this great work. And the native people say, yeah, we thought as much. And, and now, they asked the native people, so what are your struggles? And so both of these people talked. This was after, 70 years of being in Africa, they finally figured this out. These people talked. At the end, they said, okay, come back again on this day. There's something we want to show you. And on that second day, is it a thermometer that is used to measure body heat? Good. They taught these women how to use this. And they were very happy to have this small thing that was measuring. So they said to them, when a woman comes to give birth, stick this in their, in their armpit. And if it reaches this point, it's okay. If it goes beyond this, just bring her to us. And the local people said, oh, really? Yeah. So now, the next time someone went to that, to have native, delivery, and they used the thermometer and the temperature kept going, they rushed the person immediately to the sisters as an upgrade, as if he were going from one native hospital to a sophisticated hospital. That's how they cut, the rate of people dying, by coming together, by working together. Okay, not by taking your religion and your expertise and using this to beat, use it as a baseball bat to condemn people. You're not going to get anywhere. So, we are one. After all, you and I together. We suffer, together exist, and forever will recreate, each other. There are many ways this sort of dynamics is working well now in the world. Jimmy Carter has a center in Nigeria to deal with tapeworm. It's a big deal in that part of Nigeria. It took him time because to figure out how to make this work. Typical American mentality, they were throwing money, oodles of money at this. It wasn't working. People were still getting tapeworm. And what happened was there was a small body of water streams in the village, and that's where people would go to get this water and then the tapeworm. And you'll be telling people, don't go there. We have pipe-borne water. That's what, it will not register because you have to know what that stream means to the people. There might be something in that village that says, if you don't go to that stream, your grandchildren will die in the future. That's the belief system. You have to figure out a way to get into that. If you scream at the people, they will smarten up. Yeah, a white man is screaming at us. Then they'll go around and do the same thing. So it took Jimmy Carter a while to figure out that this is the way to go, understand why these people are doing this, and figure out how you can talk them out of this. If you don't ask them, they will not tell you. Of course, they'll take your dollars. They will. And this has been the problem with the developing world and the developed world. That each time there's a crisis out there, we are looking at it as a matter of poverty. So let's give them money. Let's take money to Afghanistan. Throw money at the Iraqis. They'll stop fighting each other. No. They'll take the money happily. Tomorrow, it will still be your issues because you have refused to go and know what the issue is, in that place. And sadly, the church has been operating for a long time like this. This business of Rome decides everything, and we are all supposed to, to follow. There are merits to this, but there are also loopholes. That something is happening in my culture, this thing can be, handled and solved, but just because it has to be done in a certain way, okay, why can palm wine not be part of the Eucharist instead of, the wine we have, which we always buy in the bottled wine? Why can our kind of bread not be part of this? Okay, why must it be unleavened bread? Why? That comes from a particular culture. Okay, so these things are there. And so, my friends, I'll make this. I'll have to stop very, very soon. Now, what has happened to that church of my youth? That's the church that taught me to be. That's the church, whatever has happened to me in life, that's the church I remember. The tenderness, the sharing, the St. Vincent, the Paul society, that even in that village was taking care of the very poor. I used to be very angry with my mom when some of my clothes would start disappearing. Oh, this shirt is only 2 years old. What happened? I said, I don't know. Where did you keep your shirt? She had taken it and given it to someone in another village in the name of St. Vincent de Paul, society. Because he said, well, I'm buying you. And when you finally discover someone else wearing the shirt, he said, but I'm buying you other shirts. Why can't this other poor kid, have something? What has really impressed me, two things. I will talk about, there are many things that have impressed me about the church of my youth. Do you know that in my part of the world, women have become catechists running the Sunday services? That's a big step. And it took one crazy priest who arrived in our parish one time and said, why can women not do this? Women have to be catechists. It was always men who had to do this. And the women were very happy. The women were very happy. Another thing is this. Since I was born, or even before I was born, you always had Catholic men who would go and marry non-Catholics. And they now come to the Catholic Church. But these men would refuse to wed these women in church. So child number 1, child number 2, child number 3, child number 4, 10 years of marriage. These men are not even coming to the church anymore. So the church will be begging them, come and wed your wife so that she can be part of the system. Otherwise, she remains a second-class citizen. She will not be allowed to be, to really join a group and aspire to leadership of any group, because she's not receiving the Eucharist, because she's not wedded in church. And yet, many of these women are so committed. They've embraced the Catholic faith. They are praying every time that someday their husbands, their fallen Catholics, will just come and let's have wedding. You go back, don't come again. So I can do this. So this issue brought a lot of tension. Many women like that. You grew up seeing these women. Once it was communion time, they didn't go. And now they lived in fear that they might die in this situation, which means the church could not really, the priest will not come to their funeral. The catechist will run it. Okay. So these things were like this. And 15 years ago, my bishop woke up one day and said, we are going to solve this problem. Like Pope Francis is trying to solve a lot of issues now and he's running into roadblocks everywhere. My bishop woke up and said, we're going to deal with this case by case. If you've been married for up to 5 years, 7 years, your husband is not cooperating, come and see me. And these women came back with the permission to receive the Eucharist. So they are married, they are not wedded in church, they are receiving the Eucharist. That's the kind of church I can stand for. Because it's not fair on the woman. It's not her fault. She was not even Catholic. You brought her here. So the system woke up, and you have women like that in my place. They are receiving communion. I've not seen it anywhere in Nigeria. But it takes human kindness and understanding to say, what have these women done? They are very Catholic. You know what it means to live in fear in my part of the world? That you are Catholic and the priest will not come to your funeral. You could even die of that fear. So now I go home and all these women are very happy. They're even more committed to the church because the church had mercy on them. So you don't even have to come to confession because you slept with your husband. Let God deal with it. What we know is this man is trying to torture you. I don't know why this man is doing this. So you receive your communion. When I went up the first time I heard this, I quickly went to the bishop. I was so happy with him. So when we hear all these fights in Rome, many of the people in my diocese are laughing and said, why can't these people look at people instead of laws? The Irish, they had a very unique way of, when they have flogged you and flogged you and flogged you, and you were not shifting, they'll excommunicate you. But think of the psychology of the man who comes to church that day, he's going to be excommunicated. What is wrong with you? There's something, So this person really is trapped by the faith. Because if someone says to you, on so and so day, I'm going to excommunicate you from church, and the priest comes 3 times and says, I won't show up in church that day. Especially if the process is very traumatic. So at the end of Mass, they'll light your baptismal candle and process you out to the baptismal font. And then you'll be holding that candle. Again, think of the psychology of the man who actually voluntarily comes and holds that candle. And then they'll read to you the formula of excommunication. If the name were Matthew John, it will be Matthew John, led by the devil, having abandoned through apostasy the promise he had made at his baptism, has not feared to ravage the church of God, steal God's goods, and violently oppress the poor of Christ. In our concern over this, we do not desire that he perish because of any pastoral neglect of our own. For before the dread judgment seat, we will have to render an account to the Prince of Shepherds, our Lord Jesus Christ, in accordance with the terrible warning the Lord himself addresses to us with these words. If thou dost not speak to warn the wicked from his wicked ways, to save his life, the same wicked man shall die in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at thy hands. Ezekiel 3, chapter 8. Therefore, we have canonically warned him once, twice, a third, and yet a fourth time, so that he might conquer his malice, inviting him to amend himself, make reparation and penance, and reprehending him with paternal affection. But he, oh, woe to him, despising the salutary admonitions of the church of God, the precepts of our Lord Jesus Christ, the apostles. Therefore, carrying out the precepts, let us take from the body of the church with the iron tongues of excommunication this putrid and incurable member who refuses to accept the remedy, so that the rest of the members of the body may not be poisoned by such a pestiferous disease. It goes on and on and on, and the man is holding his candle like this, and the priest is standing like this, is pouring this contamination and pouring it. At the end, the priest, this trauma. And the man now goes, the fact that that man goes to church that day means he's lost the freedom to be a human being. How do you hear that you'll be killed over there and you go there and offer your neck? Because this is what is happening here. Okay. But these were extreme measures. It was not only done in Africa, it was done in Asia, it was done in Ireland, it was done wherever the church, was very strong and the missionaries figured out what to do. Bottom line, church, school, hospital. A lot of good things and great things were done. There are still places we need to learn how to tolerate the local culture. The first thing Christ said to the apostles was not go and spread the gospel. It wasn't go and baptize. It was come and see. That's an invitation. Come and see. Once you have seen, you may not be able to unsee. And that should be what we do first. This business of using religion as a baseball bat, forcing it down people's throat, is either our way or the highway. It's never going to help. It's never going to help anybody. And worse still, we don't have the kind of power we used to have anyway. The numbers of Catholics in this country are falling. So how are you going to enforce what your doctrine says? You have to learn, whether we like it or not, to accommodate, to negotiate, to dialogue. Anyway, too much preaching. Any questions?
Let's hear it for Uwem Akpan. We do have time. You've given us so much to think about, Uwem, about, I'm reading through here, there's something about culture is ascending for me. And I wonder if you have any reactions yourself about, I was just thinking there as we were concluding that it seems like we're just only beginning to understand what the gospel is. And, so many beautiful things come out of culture, but also we do take our cultures to one another. And when we realize that migration and cultural, how to put it, travel, that is the oldest thing in the world, that it must be so very difficult to understand one another in a very basic way. The gospel should provide a key for that, and it becomes very, very unfortunate and distasteful, really repugnant when the gospel is used as a bludgeon. So I wonder if you have any questions, and I would also add this. Uwem is speaking here. You wonder what he would do, or what he does do, when he takes these experiences and then makes literature out of them. it's a different thing altogether. So you have this kind of oration, and then you have a literary space where some of these questions are worked out. I know Uwem's working right now on several things, but let me not also take too much time. Let me walk on my water and then walk over here and see if anybody has any questions or comments. You want to push back on something, or you want to clarify something? The floor is open for comments. We have about 15 minutes, so I see over here.
And you can ask also about the creative writing process, if that's what is in your heart. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that. So connecting to the creative writing and how you produce, there's a lot of talk of both tribalism and then the universal part of the church, where tribal in each village has pride in their own church versus people knowing that they're part of a universal church. So I was going to ask, what's for the Catholics of your place, what's more important, not more important, what's their first instinct, to be part of their church, the universal church, and then, or what's truly there that you write about in creative writing?
What will make sense is people can be many things at the same time. People don't want to give up what is precious to them. If you give up your local culture, you're finished. Believe you me, you know, if you allow them to evacuate you from your symbolic universe, and you will see this has happened to many immigrants. They come, they see America, America is very beautiful. They now begin to think that their people back home are backwards and stupid. And when they visit home, they try to attack those people as being uncivilized. It cannot work like that. So I should be able to be a man, an educated man, a writer, a Nigerian, an African, but an African living in America. And when the time comes, I should be able to be an American citizen, because that's a possibility. I can be all of these things at the same time. The world is not perfect, but any situation that makes you hate your culture a priori is not going to help you. And it's not just in Africa. When the Europeans came here, all this land, the United States of America, belonged to tribes. And if you Google the tribal map of America, you'll see that every part of it belonged to tribes. So this Chicago is somebody's tribal land. But the Europeans were more powerful. They defeated these people. They killed a lot of them. And so when we Africans hear sometimes, some people saying, go back home, we are immigrants. Oh, really? We should be hearing this from the Native Americans who own this place. But these people have no voice even today. Okay? But what is more painful is an experiment was done to bring them to learn the white culture, take them out of their places, hoping that if we brought them and they started living with white people, over time, they'll become white in culture. So these people grew up, and there's this resentment, and they're going back to their culture. There's this resentment. So this is what you have to be careful about, that backlash. Nobody gets it right. We always make mistakes, but how do you, begin to correct this? This is the issue. During the Second World War, if you see the number of Europeans who were jumping in ships to run to North Africa to escape the bombing in Europe, Google it, you'll see. It's almost what is happening now. All these Africans are perishing in the Mediterranean. Okay, so you're going to have this. So what does the mind of Christ say? I always loved my culture, but I never really appreciated it the way I have appreciated my culture since I started living in the US. Because my American friends will start asking me, so, could you tell me about your culture? I'm like, my culture? What? And they say, well, the shirt you're using is as a Western. And even when I use something like this, it came from Netherlands. And we call it African print. It didn't begin in Africa. It was made in Netherlands for countries in Asia. And it got to Africa, we now call it African dress. So my friends are very, they're very good in making me feel stupid from time to time. So, okay, you are very bright, you are very smart. So the shoes are from the US, the trousers. We don't want to talk about your pants. The education. So what is your culture? I had to go home and come back with Igbo music, Igbo masquerade music, and play for them. So if you let go of your culture, you may end up with nothing, and you'll always be inferior to the people whose culture you are trying to learn. You can never operate at the same level.